Deep beneath the waves of the tropical Pacific Ocean, a terrifying machine of global destruction is operating completely silently, hidden thousands of meters out of sight. While humanity often ignores the subtle shifts in our deep waters, this underwater engine is currently accelerating toward an unprecedented environmental eruption. This is not a localized storm or a brief seasonal variation. The most devastating climatic upheaval of our era is already fully active, gathering immense power in the deep ocean trenches and preparing to rewrite the daily reality of human civilization. This escalating phenomenon functions exactly like a giant electric kettle left plugged in and boiling on a fragile wooden table. The water within continues to churn and overheat, absorbing staggering amounts of thermal energy completely out of view, while the surrounding atmosphere remains deceptively calm. Human society remains largely unaware of the impending danger, only waking up to the true scale of the crisis when the trapped, high-pressure steam begins to violently warp, splinter, and crack the surrounding global framework. For generations, the global public has trivialized this immense pattern, casually dismissing El Niño as a minor, predictable weather cycle that causes nothing more than erratic rainfall or slightly warmer summer afternoons. That comfortable assumption is now dead. The 2026 Super El Niño has officially breached the point of no return, transforming into an aggressive climate anomaly that is currently preparing to completely restructure the fundamental energy flows of our entire planet. To comprehend the magnitude of this impending global transformation, this investigation will directly confront three massive questions. First, what precise physical indicators and advanced satellite data from 2026 conclusively prove that this monstrous underwater engine will inevitably erupt within the next few months? Second, in what specific ways will the sudden collapse of this foundational oceanic cycle shatter international food security and paralyze our modern urban infrastructure? Finally, as this violent natural cycle collides head-on with a planet already suffering from a prolonged, man-made industrial fever, what realistic defenses does humanity actually have left to deploy? The answers to these urgent inquiries are rewriting everything we know about environmental survival. To understand exactly why the most sophisticated supercomputers on Earth are simultaneously flashing unprecedented red alerts this summer, we must push past the surface narratives and look down into the profound physical measurements emerging from the dark heart of the central Pacific Ocean.
Consider a vivid macroscopic image captured beneath the high-powered lens of a scanning electron microscope. On the screen glows a single Jack Hill's zircon crystal, an object significantly smaller than a single grain of beach sand, yet it commands absolute attention by emitting an eerie, dim, greenish fluorescence. This microscopic speck acts as a literal atomic hard drive, a permanent planetary memory chip that has flawlessly withstood the catastrophic ravages of deep time. While entire star systems collapse and the blazing Milky Way burns through cycles of violent stellar death, this minuscule mineral matrix remains utterly indestructible. It is a pristine vessel of data, holding structural secrets from the dawn of creation, beautifully proving that the grandest histories of our cosmos do not require massive monuments to survive, but can instead be safely locked away inside an imperishable, glowing speck of primordial stone. The journey to uncover this micro-monument takes us to the vast landscapes of Western Australia, specifically the rugged and remote Jack Hills region. In this ancient, red-dusted outback, geologists carefully searched through battered rock formations, seeking clues to our origins. What they discovered inside those stones stunned the global scientific community. They isolated tiny mineral particles that condensed an astonishing 4,400,000,000 years ago. These glowing specks represent the absolute oldest known solid matter on Earth ever recorded by humankind. They are genuine physical relics from an era when our world was emerging from its chaotic birth, offering us an unbroken material bridge to the earliest days of planetary history. To extract the history from these particles, scientists rely on the precise physics of radiometric dating, operating much like an immutable atomic hourglass. Billions of years ago, as the primordial magma of the young Earth cooled, unstable uranium atoms became trapped within the rigid, unyielding crystalline lattice of the forming zircon. From that exact moment, those radioactive uranium atoms began to decay into stable lead at a mathematically constant, predictable rate that nothing in the universe can alter. By carefully measuring the exact remaining ratio of uranium to lead inside the crystal today, geologists unlock an infallible, absolute timeline. This empirical method provides humanity with a precise mathematical camera, allowing us to reconstruct ancient eras with flawless scientific certainty. This rigorous verification completely shatters the naive notion that a living entity or an actual physical camera was needed at that moment to record history. The rocks themselves are the silent witnesses, logging the deep time data across eons, preserving cosmic truth without missing a single second. Beyond merely telling us the age of our world, these crystals revealed an astonishing chemical mystery that completely rewrote our textbooks. When researchers subjected the Jack Hills zircon to advanced spectrography, they detected a distinct signature of the heavy oxygen-18 isotope. In the absolute laws of geochemistry, this specific isotope can only be incorporated into a mineral lattice if the crystal originally formed in the direct presence of liquid water. This discovery conclusively proves that the primordial Earth possessed liquid oceans and cooled down significantly faster than any older theoretical models had ever anticipated. This single fact completely overturns the long-held scientific assumption that our planet remained an unlivable, entirely blazing fireball of liquid magma for its first half-billion years of existence, revealing a surprisingly calm and watery world hiding in deep time. Contemplating these microcrystals invokes an overwhelming, almost paralyzing feeling regarding the immense, incomprehensible scale of deep time. Human lifetimes shrink into invisible flashes when compared against a rock that has spent 4 billion years holding its breath. This realization shifts our initial state of quiet shock into a state of profound awe, preparing our minds for the next chapter. The brief peace of this early, watery world was not meant to last in the untamed solar system. The fragile equilibrium of our cooling paradise was about to be violently shattered. As we lift our gaze from the microscopic architecture of the zircon, we must prepare to witness the terrifying collision that is already tearing through space, poised to break our planet apart. Imagine a spectacular telemetry view, cutting through the absolute freeze of space, revealing a colossal, blinding ring of superheated cosmic dust and churning magma completely encircling a tortured liquid Earth. This planetary architecture stands as a terrifying, nightmarish counterpart to Saturn's elegant, pristine, icy rings. Yet this primordial structure is forged entirely in hellfire and violently swirling molten rock. The immense, incandescent halo of pulverized debris accelerates through the void, casting a fierce crimson radiance over an endless ocean of boiling lava churning down below. This catastrophic cosmic ring transforms our newborn infant world into a glowing, monstrous apparition, pulsing violently within the lonely, dark gallery of the stellar cosmos, demonstrating how ultimate beauty can be crafted directly from the raw, terrifying heart of unprecedented geological destruction, unfolding in deep time before the very dawn of human historical existence itself. This incredible story of systemic planetary creation reaches its most violent chapter within the widely accepted Big Splash hypothesis. The monumental cosmic event takes place exactly 4.54 billion years ago, during the chaotic infancy of our local solar system. At this precise moment, a rogue primordial planet called Theia, which was roughly the size of Mars, charted a terminal course directly toward our young world. Moving with terrifying momentum, Theia crashed into Earth at a staggering velocity of 15 kilometers per second. This lethal cosmic impact occurred 20 times faster than a speeding rifle bullet, permanently altering the structural fate of our entire world and redefining the mechanics of planetary evolution forever. This extreme physical event beautifully clarifies the thermodynamic mechanism of converting immense kinetic energy into pure thermal energy. Audiences frequently wonder how an ancient planet or meteorite could burn up into a giant fireball when the early Earth completely lacked an atmosphere. The answer lies in the extreme pressure generated from a direct head-on collision at supersonic speed. This intense thermodynamic compression instantly generated temperatures exceeding 1200 degrees Celsius, melting the solid crusts of both colliding celestial bodies without any need for atmospheric oxygen friction. Furthermore, the law of conservation of momentum caused the struck Earth to spin wildly, compressing its entire day cycle down to lasting only 6 hours. Simultaneously, the blast wave threw trillions of tons of superheated debris into orbit, where the magic of gravity molded the Moon in just 1,000 years. During this epoch, our nascent companion orbited at an extremely close distance of 22,500 kilometers away, heavily dominating the ancient toxic horizon as a giant, red-hot monument of raw structural force that continuously reshaped our early turbulent rotational history across deep time. This catastrophic origin story introduces a fascinating geological paradox that remained unsolved until the late 20th century, when the historical Apollo missions successfully brought pristine lunar rock samples back to Earth. Laboratory analysis revealed a staggering anomaly. The lunar stones possessed an astonishingly similar oxygen isotope signature to the rocks found in Earth's own mantle. Under the rigid laws of geochemistry, every independent planet in our solar system carries a completely unique isotopic signature, acting as a planetary fingerprint. Therefore, this matching chemical evidence definitively proves that the Moon is absolutely not a captured alien asteroid drawn in by chance. Instead, it is a genuinely torn apart, flesh and blood part of the early Earth's own physical body, forever bound to us by a shared structural heritage that can be traced directly back to that single primordial day of fire. Contemplating this monumental epoch makes our human emotions shiver at the violent restructuring power and raw indifference of celestial mechanics. We watch two planetary titans dissolve into liquid, realizing that the very architecture of our night sky was built upon a foundation of absolute cosmic terror. Yet, this extreme structural realignment was the necessary prelude to our world's future stabilization. The intense kinetic fury eventually ebbed, allowing gravity to work its quiet magic across deep time. Our trajectory now gently descends from the glowing magma ring, leaving the newly formed Moon behind as it lands safely on the rapidly cooling crustal surface of the planet. Here, in the quiet aftermath of devastation, Earth prepares to receive a saving cosmic rain carrying the vital fluid of life. Look closely at a stunning series of macro images showcasing tiny fluid inclusions tightly trapped within the transparent quartz salt crystals of ancient meteorites that fell to Earth exactly 3.9 billion years ago. These primordial water droplets resemble the pure, immortal tears of the universe itself, miraculously preserved in pristine isolation for eons. Shimmering like unpolished, rough gems hidden deep within the violent heart of apocalyptic cosmic bombardment disasters, these minute fluid capsules glow under laboratory lighting. They present a breathtaking visual contrast between the destructive, fiery chaos of deep space impacts and the delicate, serene architecture of life's most critical fluid molecule. This striking imagery reveals how the chaotic violence of the early solar system was quietly carrying the serene blueprints for future planetary oceans within its battered iron carapaces. This cosmic delivery system reached its peak during a chaotic astronomical epoch known as the Late Heavy Bombardment. Around 3.9 billion years ago, millions of water-bearing meteorites continuously assaulted the planet's surface for over 20 million years. Each individual missile carried only a tiny amount of moisture, but as the unrelenting barrage persisted across deep time, the liquid slowly began to accumulate. Small puddles merged into rising pools. Pools expanded into vast lakes, and those lakes eventually joined to swallow the landscapes, forming the majestic primordial ocean. This relentless rain of space debris effectively cooled the molten crust, constructing a global aquatic stadium where the opening acts of terrestrial evolution could safely begin. Modern geology resolves the intense scientific debate regarding whether Earth's water arrived from external celestial sources or escaped from endogenous planetary reservoirs by introducing a unified model of volcanic degassing. The origin of our oceans is actually a magnificent material symphony. Roughly half of the water was transported to our world via distant cosmic icebergs during the meteor bombardments, while the other half was already locked within the molecular structure of blue ringwoodite rock deep inside the mantle since the early days of accretion. As internal pressures mounted, violent volcanic eruptions tore through the newly forming crust, releasing this massive reservoir of trapped water vapor into the atmosphere as dense, pressurized smoke. This ascending gas encountered the rapidly cooling surface of the primordial crust, which had dropped to approximately 70 degrees Celsius. This dramatic temperature drop caused the dense atmospheric vapor to condense completely, triggering catastrophic, unyielding global floods that raged continuously for millennia, forever drowning the volcanic lowlands and solidifying the first true oceanic boundaries of our planet. Chiêm nghiệm về lịch sử địa hóa học vĩ đại này, chúng ta khám phá ra một sự thật hiển nhiên nhưng lại hoàn toàn đánh vỡ trực giác thông thường của con người về thế giới tự nhiên. Every single sip of water we drink today to satisfy our thirst, every drop of morning dew resting quietly upon a leaf, and every wave crashing against a modern coastline is literally billions of years old. This essential fluid has survived planetary collisions, global freezes, and volcanic extinctions without changing its basic molecular form. These exact water molecules traveled millions of kilometers across the absolute freeze of deep space inside ancient asteroids before falling to our planet. Today, that very same cosmic liquid flows directly through our modern bloodstreams, meaning that when we look at a glass of water, we are looking at an ancient cosmic relic that predates the existence of every plant, dinosaur, and human being. Contemplating this vast cycle invokes a deep feeling of silent reverence before the eternal, unbroken flow of cosmic matter across deep time. We realize that our planet is a giant, recycling chemical engine, beautifully balancing its internal fires with its external aquatic shell to preserve the delicate conditions necessary for our survival. This realization gently shifts our perspective, leading our gaze away from the turbulent, storm-whipped sea surface of the primordial ocean. We begin a slow, dramatic descent into the dark, silent depths of a 3,000-meter-deep abyss. Down here, far removed from the howling winds and crashing surface waves, the crushing pressure holds a new secret. Within this pitch-black underwater desert, the very first jagged stone towers are quietly awakening, preparing to spark life. Observe a stunning wide-angle underwater photograph capturing the towering black smokers' geothermal structures, standing like dark monoliths at the absolute bottom of the deep sea. These colossal formations continuously spew out thick streams of pitch-black, superheated liquid packed tightly with compressed sulfide minerals into the freezing ocean. This stark imagery captures a bizarre alien landscape where hellish terrestrial heat erupts directly into a freezing aquatic desert, painting a haunting portrait of the planet's internal fury. It represents a surreal, pitch-black world where toxic geology creates the unexpected foundations for future biology. In this deep abyss, toxic elements become the unexpected catalyst for life. This dramatic scene carries us back exactly 3.8 billion years ago into a hostile world where atmospheric sunlight was completely powerless, unable to penetrate beyond the upper 300 meters of the ocean. At these crushing depths, environmental temperatures hovered perilously close to freezing. Yet, an incredible thermodynamic loop was silently occurring underneath the seabed. Frigid seawater constantly seeped down into the Earth's interior through deep cracks and fractured pathways in the rocky geological crust. Deep underground, this trapped water encountered the blazing magma of the mantle. It superheated instantly, collecting immense energy, volatile gases, and heavy dissolved minerals before violently bouncing back up into the dark ocean. This convective circulation provided a stable oasis of raw thermal power amidst the abyssal cold. It was within this intense environment that the earliest foundations of terrestrial biology emerged, answering the ancient question of how life began. Rather than an accidental spark in the open ocean, life crystallized within a boiling chemical soup. Carbon molecules, crude primitive proteins, and vital amino acids delivered by cosmic meteorites blended intimately with the rich sulfide minerals spewed from the Earth's molten interior. This potent chemical mixture accumulated directly inside the microscopic, porous rock matrices of the hydrothermal chimneys. Crucially, the tiny labyrinthine microstructures of these rocky cliffs acted precisely like the first inorganic cell membranes. These mineral walls successfully maintained critical pH and electrical gradients between the acidic ocean water and the alkaline geothermal fluids. This localized electrical voltage activated the trapped, self-replicating amino acids, forcing organic matter to organize. Through this natural mineral matrix, simple chemicals transitioned into living, anaerobic, single-celled bacteria. These microscopic organisms represent the absolute earliest forms of life on Earth, establishing the indestructible trunk of the entire tree of biological evolution. This structured origin proves that life did not arise by random luck, but was systematically forged by the strict laws of geochemistry. This extraordinary evolutionary breakthrough introduces an astonishing fact that completely defies conventional biological thinking. For centuries, humanity assumed that sunlight was the mandatory, absolute prerequisite for all living systems. However, these primordial single-celled organisms completely bypass solar radiation, relying instead on a process known as chemosynthesis. By feeding directly on the toxic sulfur compounds and thermal energy radiating from the vents, they proved that a planet can blossom with life in total astronomical darkness. This empirical discovery permanently expands our search for extraterrestrial life across the cosmos. It opens up profound, validated scientific hope of finding similar thriving microbial ecosystems in the dark subsurface oceans of alien ice moons, such as Jupiter's Europa or Saturn's Enceladus, where volcanic cores might similarly warm underground waters beneath kilometers of crustal ice. The absolute darkness of Earth's abyss reveals a universal blueprint for life across the stellar void. Contemplating this primordial dawn leaves our human emotions completely overwhelmed by the breathtaking resilience and stubborn pride of this early life. Out of a toxic, sunless hell of crushing pressure and volcanic poison, existence did not merely survive. It anchored itself into the very fabric of the planet, waiting for its moment to conquer the world. This profound realization alters our narrative trajectory, prompting a slow, dramatic transition across vast epochs of deep time. We leave the suffocating, pitch-black deep-sea trenches behind, ascending slowly through the clearing primordial oceans. Our cinematic lens moves steadily toward the sun-drenched, shallow coastal bays of the ancient world. Here, bathed in the gentle warmth of an early sun, a brand new generation of complex geological architects is preparing to completely rewrite Earth's history. Look upon the shallow continental shelves of the ancient ocean, where vast, eerie landscapes reveal themselves beneath the shimmering tides. Rising stubbornly from the watery floor are dark, rough, mushroom-shaped rock formations that stretch as far as the eye can see. At a casual glance, they closely resemble inanimate, decayed, fossilized tree stumps frozen in time by some ancient curse. However, this cold appearance hides a stunning biological truth. These bizarre stone pillars are actually massive, booming living cities containing trillions of microscopic cyanobacteria, silently breathing and working together beneath the sun-warmed waters. Every square centimeter of these scrunched mineral towers pulses with microscopic activity, presenting a magnificent visual juxtaposition where raw, stone-like structures serve as the active, thriving metropolises for the very organisms that will fundamentally rewrite the environmental fate of the entire world. This monumental shift anchors our historical journey exactly 3.5 billion years ago, during a critical evolutionary turning point in deep time. These mysterious microbial structures, known to modern science as stromatolites, represent the absolute first living mechanical structures capable of completely changing the global geological landscape and the chemical atmosphere of Earth from observable space. Before their emergence, the planet's appearance was driven purely by raw volcanic activity and celestial impacts. The stromatolites broke this cycle, using their biological growth to physically alter the planet's face, proving that even the most microscopic life forms could permanently hijack the destiny of a rocky world. The mechanism behind this global transformation was the evolutionary invention of photosynthesis, a process that generated massive amounts of free oxygen, operating effectively as a planetary-scale air purification plant. These ancient colonies of cyanobacteria tirelessly absorbed vast quantities of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and combined it with sunlight to release free oxygen gas directly into the water. This primordial oxygen did not immediately escape into the sky. Instead, it dissolved into the prehistoric oceans, where it encountered immense reservoirs of iron that had been spewed from underwater volcanoes. The oxygen immediately reacted with this dissolved iron, rusting the entire primordial ocean and turning the water into a rich, iron-rich crimson broth. This heavy rust settled to the seabed over eons, forming thick, banded iron deposits. Billions of years later, human civilizations mined these very same ancient seabed formations to extract the raw structural materials needed to forge our grandest industrial bridges, massive warships, and towering modern skyscrapers, weaving a direct physical link between ancient microbes and our modern urban world. However, this sudden oxygen explosion carried a terrifying evolutionary paradox. The massive accumulation of this gas triggered the single greatest extinction event for the ancient anaerobic organisms that had ruled the planet, as oxygen was highly toxic to them. Yet, this planetary crisis simultaneously acted as a magnificent cosmic turning point. As the oxygen interacted with solar radiation high in the sky, it forged a thick, protective ozone layer that shielded the surface from deadly ultraviolet rays. Combined with the steady slowing of the Earth's rotation, which extended the day cycle to 16 hours, this defensive atmospheric blanket laid the mandatory evolutionary foundations for much larger, complex multicellular organisms to safely emerge from the oceans and conquer the dry land, permanently securing the future of terrestrial biology. Contemplating this ancient epoch leaves our human minds filled with deep, silent admiration for these anonymous, single-celled organisms that tirelessly built our beautiful blue sky. We realize that every breath of air we take today is a direct gift from these microscopic stone builders who sacrificed their world to construct our own. Yet, the stable paradise they engineered was soon tested by the unrelenting forces of the deep earth. The scene now dramatically shifts across eons to a terrifying moment when intense, pent-up heat from the planet's molten core begins to tear the vast supercontinents apart. This immense geological unrest triggers a chaotic chain of events, rapidly pushing the fragile Earth into a brand new state of extreme danger and global instability. Look upon a fascinating spectrography image simulating our planet as a pure white crystal sphere, entirely encased in an unforgiving, 3-kilometer thick layer of solid ice stretching relentlessly from the frozen poles all the way to the equator. This striking data visualization compares the planet at this specific epoch to a frozen dead star, stranded helplessly at the absolute edge of the solar system, or a cold, lifeless gemstone drifting silently through the terrifying vastness of deep space. Because of this flawless, unbroken glacial sheath, Earth reflects 100% of incoming solar light right back into the void of space. This dramatic imagery reveals a world completely frozen in time, transformed from a watery blue paradise into a brilliant but sterile planetary mirror that effectively denies warmth to anything remaining on its harsh, desolate surface. This epic narrative carries us back exactly 750 million years ago, to a volatile era when the Grand Rodinia supercontinent was violently torn apart by massive magma flows erupting directly from the Earth's molten core. As the colossal tectonic plates fractured and shifted under this intense internal pressure, they left behind vast, jagged areas of rough rock exposed along newly formed geological fissures. This massive continental breakup destabilized the planet's geochemical cycles, creating an unyielding landscape of raw stone that stood ready to interact with the ancient atmosphere, setting the stage for the most extreme climatic shift the world would ever witness. This unique geographical arrangement triggered the destructive mechanism of the reverse greenhouse effect, which can be beautifully understood through the narrative metaphor of a massive planetary sponge absorbing toxic gases from the sky. The colossal continental breakup created a global environment of unrelenting, massive acid rain that continuously assaulted the barren landscapes. As this acidic water washed over the newly exposed rock layers, a profound chemical reaction occurred. The stones absorbed virtually all the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, locking it deeply within the Earth. Lacking essential carbon dioxide to retain the sun's heat, the planet's global temperature plummeted to -50 degrees Celsius, turning Earth into a snowball Earth for 15 million years. The only release from this icy prison came when the underground volcanic systems accumulated immense pressure. They finally pierced through the thick ice layer, releasing billions of tons of CO2 back into the atmosphere. This escaped gas acted exactly like a giant thermal blanket, warming the frozen world, melting the glaciers, and successfully freeing the entire planet from its long, catastrophic confinement within its grand, deep-time, icy geological prison. As the great ice sheets rapidly melted, a fascinating and unintended chemical consequence unfolded across the changing face of the globe. During the long melting process, intense solar ultraviolet rays directly interacted with the exposed water molecules trapped within the upper layers of ice. This celestial radiation reaction created vast quantities of hydrogen peroxide, a highly reactive compound. Now, as the planetary ice cover disintegrated completely, this massive reservoir of hydrogen peroxide broke down rapidly, releasing a sudden and monumental surge of free oxygen gas directly into the world's oceans. This dramatic oxygen enrichment of the aquatic realm altered the chemical balance of marine habitats, directly triggering the legendary Cambrian evolutionary explosion shortly thereafter, where complex multicellular biological life blossomed into a dazzling array of diverse, armored creatures across the global seafloor, fundamentally reshaping the biological destiny of our world. Witnessing this dramatic systemic cycle inspires profound awe at the Earth's majestic self-healing capacity and its precise mechanical balancing capabilities across deep time. Even when pushed to the absolute brink of total thermodynamic death, the planet utilizes its own internal volcanic engine to restore atmospheric order, demonstrating an indestructible resilience. This realization completely reshapes our perspective on planetary fragility, illustrating that every climate crisis is met with an equally powerful geological reaction. A smooth, cinematic transition now carries our viewing lens away from the oxygenated, booming prehistoric seas of the Cambrian period. We travel forward across millions of years, watching the landscape shift as we step boldly into a terrifying new era dominated by the spectacular footprints of the world's very first armored, horned land giants. Gaze across a hellish, ruined landscape where thousands of kilometers of violent geological fissures tear through Siberia, erupting with unrelenting torrents of fiery red basalt magma for an unimaginable 500,000 years. Below this volcanic nightmare, the global sea surface dramatically transforms into a murky, stagnant orange-pink broth caused by the catastrophic explosion of toxic anaerobic algae thriving in the overheated waters. This apocalyptic landscape compares the ancient ocean at this time to a boiling, toxic chemical soup, bubbling violently with lethal sulfur gases. From the absolute darkness of the deepest subsea holes to the sunlit shallows of the continental shelves, a thick, poisonous shroud chokes the marine world. This horrifying visualization portrays an entire world suffocating under an immense blanket of toxic geology, turning a vibrant planet into a stagnant pool of absolute global decay. This terrifying chemical collapse carries our narrative back exactly 250 million years ago, capturing the dark dawn of the Permian-Triassic extinction. Known to science as the grandest crisis of deep time, this planetary catastrophe stands as the absolute most brutal, unyielding purge of living networks in the entire history of Earth. The scale of this ancient devastation is almost impossible to fully comprehend, as the cascading environmental failures systematically wiped out an astonishing 95% of all marine species and a vast majority of land creatures. It remains a stark geological boundary line, proving how quickly a rich planetary paradise can be completely undone by internal volcanic forces, leaving the entire globe on the absolute brink of becoming a permanent cosmic desert. The precise thermodynamic mechanism behind this planetary extinction involves a catastrophic runaway release of greenhouse gases. As the Siberian traps erupted, massive plumes of volcanic ash and sulfur dioxide choked the skies, completely obscuring the sun and generating unrelenting torrents of toxic sulfuric acid rain that burned the land. This thick atmospheric blanket trapped intense heat, driving global temperatures upward until the atmosphere heated to a scorching 40 degrees Celsius. This extreme heat wave eventually penetrated the ocean depths, melting vast, frozen pockets of methane clathrate gas locked beneath the seabed. This newly awakened methane escaped directly into the atmosphere, unleashing a greenhouse effect at least 20 times stronger than carbon dioxide. The warming oceans became stagnant, entirely deprived of dissolved oxygen, which allowed toxic algae to flourish while transforming the planet into a suffocating, inescapable death trap. This systematic environmental collapse completely reset the entire evolutionary clock of life, clearing the world's stage of its dominant species. Amidst this total global annihilation, this dark chapter of planetary history reveals an extraordinary, long-term evolutionary triumph. The only terrestrial organisms that successfully survived this grueling half-million-year catastrophe were a handful of small, specialized creatures capable of burrowing deep underground to escape the scorching heat and acidic rain. Hidden within their subterranean sanctuaries, these tiny animals managed to endure by eating whatever decaying organic scraps or sparse vegetation were available in the dead soil. These tenacious, low-profile survivors are the direct evolutionary ancestors of all modern mammals, and ultimately, of human beings today. This incredible historical truth proves that our own modern existence was secured not by the mighty giants of the Permian Plains, but by the smallest, most adaptable burrowers who held the fragile spark of future consciousness in the dark. Contemplating this apocalyptic threshold sends a profound shiver of emotion through our human consciousness, forcing us to recognize the extreme fragility of life when confronted by the blind, macro-mechanical upheavals of a volatile planet. We watch entire ecosystems dissolve into pink slime and ash, realizing how thin the line is between planetary survival and absolute extinction. Yet, the grand narrative of Earth is defined by a rhythmic cycle of destruction and rebirth. As the devastating Siberian fires slowly cooled, a smooth, majestic transition leads our cinematic lens into a spectacular new era of planetary restoration. Temperatures began to stabilize, the toxic rains neutralized, and a proud, seemingly invincible dynasty stepped boldly onto the newly greened world stage to conquer the planet. The dinosaurs. Picture the terrifying moment: a colossal 10-kilometer-wide meteorite, an interstellar boulder structurally larger than Mount Everest, collides with the Yucatan Peninsula with the devastating energy of millions of detonated nuclear bombs. The entire planetary ground buckles violently in a series of global super-earthquakes, while the surrounding atmosphere instantly blazes with a scorching temperature of 275 degrees Celsius. This apocalyptic explosion resembles a massive, swift hammer blow from nature, violently shattering a sheet of fragile glass, fracturing the global biosphere. In a single cataclysmic flash, this cosmic impact completely collapses the proud, 165-million-year-old kingdom of the dinosaurs. The blinding flash transforms a vibrant tropical world into a darkened graveyard of ash and fire, visually defining the sudden, brutal end of an unstoppable reptilian empire. This dramatic planetary realignment shifts our gentle historical narrative exactly 65 million years into the past, exposing the absolute greatest macro-evolutionary turning point in terrestrial history. In the suffocating darkness of the post-impact winter, when the skies were choked with soot and sunlight was extinguished for years, the grand reptilian titans starved. However, this total environmental collapse opened a narrow, unexpected pathway for the small, low-profile mammalian animals hidden safely underground to finally emerge from their burrows. These tiny, resilient survivors stepped out into the ruined landscapes, gradually adapting to the changing environment and eventually inheriting the planet's vacant throne, beginning a new lineage of life. This deep time transition beautifully illustrates the direct structural connection between tectonic geology and behavioral evolution. Exactly 4 million years ago, shifting mantle currents beneath the African continent tore the crust apart, creating the massive Great Rift Valley in East Africa and erecting monumental rock walls. These newly raised mountain ridges acted as an unyielding physical barrier, completely blocking the moist, life-giving winds blowing from the Indian Ocean. Consequently, the lush, dense tropical rainforests withered away, rapidly giving way to vast, arid savannas dominated by tall, sweeping grasslands. To survive, navigate, and successfully locate food across these open, predator-filled plains, early hominids were forced to abandon their ancestral tree-climbing habits. They stood upright on 2 legs to peer over the high vegetation, a monumental biomechanical shift that permanently freed their hands. This physical liberation allowed them to manipulate objects, carry food, and eventually manufacture the very first primitive stone tools, establishing the absolute most critical foundation for the ultimate birth of advanced human civilization. Beyond this ancient anatomical shift, modern genetic science reveals an astonishing historical mystery that highlights the extreme fragility of our lineage. Mitochondrial DNA tracking conclusively proves that every single human being living outside of Africa today is the direct descendant of a remarkably small pioneer group of only about 200 brave individuals. 70,000 years ago, during the freezing hardships of a devastating global ice age, this tiny band of ancestors faced starvation as resource zones collapsed. Driven by raw survival instinct, they made a desperate crossing over the 13-kilometer narrow Bab el-Mandeb Strait of the Red Sea. This single perilous migration across a shallow oceanic chasm serves as a staggering bottleneck in human prehistory, demonstrating that our global modern civilization once hung by a thread, carried across the water by a few hundred desperate travelers. Contemplating this epic evolutionary journey inspires a profound sense of silent reverence before the majestic, unbroken chain of our ancestors. We realize that our modern consciousness was forged through cosmic fire, global ice, and shifting mountains, making our everyday existence a miraculous inheritance. Every step taken on 2 legs connects us directly to those ancient travelers who braved a changing world and refused to perish in the dark. This deep emotional connection to our planetary past naturally elevates our perspective, urging us to look beyond the local landscape. Our cinematic lens now glides smoothly away from the grassy plains, directing its gaze straight up into the sky to delve into the mathematical nature of the invisible, protective electromagnetic shield safeguarding our world. To truly understand the grand chronicle of our world, we must examine the exquisite mechanical precision of mass spectrometry, the foundational technology that allows humanity to decode the absolute age of the planet. Geology is frequently misunderstood by the public as a discipline built upon guesswork, speculation, or fluid hypotheses. In reality, it is a rigorous, highly experimental science operating with extremely small margins of error, often calculating timelines with an accuracy greater than 99%. The primary tool behind this chronological certainty is the mass spectrometer, a device that acts as a microscopic scale for individual atoms. Scientists begin this rigorous process by isolating individual pristine crystals of zircon from ancient rock strata. These zircon minerals are incredibly resilient, surviving extreme heat and pressure across eons. When these crystals originally solidify from cooling magma, their specific chemical architecture readily accepts radioactive uranium atoms into their crystalline lattice, but completely rejects any atomic lead. Consequently, any lead detected inside a clean zircon crystal today is guaranteed to be the direct product of radioactive decay. providing an untampered atomic record. To read this record, the mass spectrometer vaporizes and ionizes a microscopic segment of the zircon crystal, transforming the solid matter into a beam of moving, charged ions. This atomic beam is then accelerated at extreme speeds through a finely calibrated, powerful magnetic field. As the ions travel through this magnetic corridor, the laws of electromagnetism force their trajectories to bend. Crucially, the amount of deflection depends entirely on the mass of the individual ion. Heavy isotopes possess more inertia and resist the magnetic pull, bending at a wider angle, whereas lighter isotopes bend much more sharply. This precise spatial separation allows sensitive digital detectors to count individual isotopes with absolute structural certainty. Geologists measure the exact remaining ratio of radioactive uranium-235 to its final stable daughter product, lead-207, because the radioactive decay rate, known as the half-life, of uranium-235 is a fundamental, unchanging physical constant of the universe, solidly fixed at roughly 704 million years. This specific isotopic ratio provides an unalterable, mathematical clock. This rigorous methodology yields undeniable mathematical fingerprints permanently hidden within the vast stratigraphic pages of the Earth. Each independent layer of rock, each ancient sedimentary deposit, and each compressed volcanic formation serves as a leaf in a grand, verifiable planetary ledger. When modern physics asserts a date in deep time, it is not a loose estimate. It is an empirical calculation derived from the unchanging laws of nuclear physics, proving the past without requiring human witnesses. Through this experimental precision, we can confidently read the deep history of our world, knowing that every layer of stone holds a mathematically verifiable truth that completely withstands human skepticism. Just as we can rely on the absolute precision of geological dating, we can also use empirical physics to debunk the widespread conspiracy theories and sensationalized social media rumors, suggesting that Earth is rapidly turning into a desolate, lifeless Mars within the next 1,200 years due to an imminent stagnation of its core. These alarming claims are entirely decoupled from scientific reality and fail to comprehend the massive scale of the geodynamo effect. Deep within our planet, at a staggering depth of approximately 2,900 kilometers beneath the crust, lies a colossal, dual-layered planetary engine. This engine consists of a solid inner core composed of iron and nickel, surrounded by a vast, constantly swirling outer core of molten liquid metals. Driven by the intense heat radiating from the center and the rotational forces of the planet, this liquid outer core continuously churns in massive convective currents. This relentless fluid motion of highly conductive molten iron generates immense electrical currents, which in turn produce our global geomagnetic shield. This invisible magnetic blanket extends far out into space, successfully deflecting the lethal, eroding stream of solar wind and cosmic radiation that would otherwise strip away our precious atmosphere. Understanding the sheer physical scale of this subterranean furnace provides an absolute vindication of the modern energy industry against claims that human activity is destabilizing the core. Many viral rumors suggest that the human extraction of oil, gas, and geothermal energy from the Earth's crust is somehow draining or depleting the core's internal thermal fuel. In reality, the deepest industrial boreholes ever drilled by humanity reach a depth of only a few kilometers into the uppermost layer of the crust. When measured against the vast radius of the Earth, this industrial piercing is completely insignificant, equivalent to merely scratching the outermost surface of a giant's skin. Human engineering cannot possibly reach, alter, or diminish the enormous, self-sustaining nuclear and primordial heat source operating thousands of kilometers deep within the planet. The core's thermal energy is powered by the radioactive decay of heavy isotopes like potassium, thorium, and uranium, generating a massive reservoir of heat that will take billions of years to slowly cool, entirely independent of superficial human resource extraction. Furthermore, modern anxieties surrounding the South Atlantic anomaly, a localized region where the magnetic shield appears temporarily weakened, are frequently misinterpreted as signs of an impending global apocalypse. In the objective context of deep time, this anomaly is simply a clear manifestation of a natural, routine magnetic pole shift of the planet. This mechanical process of shifting magnetic fluxes and temporary field fluctuations has successfully occurred hundreds of times throughout Earth's long history without ever permanently extinguishing the geomagnetic shield. The planet's core remains a powerful, deeply protected engine that will safeguard our atmosphere for eons to come, completely unaffected by our industrial endeavors on the surface. To grasp the true structural weight of the planetary chronicle we have decoded, we must deliberately elevate our human thinking far beyond our local geographic horizons and project our conscious awareness onto the truly macroscopic scale of the cosmic theater. The 4,500,000,000-year history of Earth is fundamentally not an isolated, accidental, or independent event occurring in a vacuum. Instead, it is an integrated, beautifully complex branch of the grand evolutionary processes that govern massive galactic structures across deep time. Every single atom of heavy iron pulsing within our subterranean core, every breath of oxygen passing through our biological respiratory networks, and every drop of water filling our rolling global oceans was originally forged inside the crushing, superheated nuclear furnaces of ancient, long-dead stars that exploded as brilliant supernovae billions of years before our local nebular cloud even began to coalesce. The Milky Way galaxy functions as a massive, slow-churning recycling engine of matter and energy, where the deaths of ancient stellar titans directly provide the raw chemical ingredients required to seed new cosmic worlds. The structural formation of our local solar system was entirely dependent on the precise spatial movements, spiral arm dynamics, and gravitational currents of this sweeping interstellar architecture, demonstrating that the creation of our home planet was merely a tiny, localized masterpiece sculpted by the grand macroscopic physics of our broader galactic home. When we observe the wider universe through this macro-scale geological lens, we quickly discover that the appearance of a stable rocky planet, equipped with abundant liquid water, a perfectly balanced mild magnetic field, and a resilient, protective atmosphere is absolutely not a statistical certainty or a common cosmic given. Instead, our local world resides within an extraordinarily narrow, highly exclusive spatial region known to modern astrophysics as the galactic habitable zone of the Milky Way. This orbital sweet spot represents a delicate cosmic compromise where the laws of astrophysics align flawlessly to allow complex chemistry to transform into living biological networks. If our solar system had originally formed too close to the hostile, superheated core of our galaxy, our infant planet would have been repeatedly sterilized by the lethal bursts of ionizing cosmic radiation constantly emanating from the supermassive black hole and dense stellar clusters dominating the galactic center. Conversely, if our world had materialized too far out on the outer, desolate fringes of the galactic disk, the surrounding interstellar medium would have completely lacked the necessary metal composition and heavy elements required to build dense, rocky planetary layers and dynamic heat-generating cores. Earth sits precisely within this thin, golden orbital cradle, a rare domain where chemical richness and absolute structural safety find a temporary, perfect equilibrium across eons. To truly appreciate the spectacular abundance of organized matter and complex geology found on our local world, we must contrast our domestic oasis against the ruthless, terrifying emptiness that dominates the true large-scale superstructures of the cosmos. Beyond the bright, interconnected filament walls of our local superclusters lie monumental expanses of utter nothingness, the grandest of which is the legendary Boët's Void, a terrifying cosmic supervoid stretching an astonishing 300 million light-years in diameter. This massive expanse of dark vacuum is so profoundly empty that it contains almost no gas, no dust, and only a tiny, completely negligible handful of isolated galaxies scattered across an unyielding desert of absolute cosmic winter. If the Milky Way were situated at the absolute center of the Boët's Void, human civilization would not have discovered the existence of other galaxies until the middle of the 20th century. So immense is the dark isolation surrounding that domain. Within these sterile, haunting voids, the probability of matter accumulating to form deep oceans, protective geomagnetic shields, or self-aware biological entities drops to practically zero, highlighting how precious our local abundance truly is. We live on a planet that represents a spectacular concentration of physical organization, an unthinkably rare assembly of complex chemistry thriving in an overarching universe that is otherwise defined by an overwhelming, silent, and fiercely cold emptiness. Yet, even as we celebrate these monumental scientific discoveries, we must maintain a deeply contemplative and profoundly humble posture when confronting our stark intellectual limitations as a primitive species. Humanity has achieved extraordinary engineering triumphs. We have successfully deployed the revolutionary infrared lenses of the James Webb Space Telescope to peer into the ancient morning of the cosmos, capturing the faint light of the very first star systems, and we continue to rely on the elegant mathematical models of Albert Einstein to map the smooth bending of space-time. Yet, when modern science faces the absolute totality of creation, we must honestly acknowledge that our grandest instruments only decode a tiny fraction of reality. The profound phenomena of dark matter and dark energy, mysterious cosmic entities that collectively constitute an astonishing 95% of the entire mass energy budget of the universe, remain completely unexplained and invisible to our current scientific paradigms. These unseen, silent forces are actively stretching the very fabric of space-time on a universal scale, relentlessly driving the expansion of the cosmos and ultimately dictating the absolute long-term fate of our fragile planet. We do not know if our universe will end in a silent freeze or a violent tear, reminding us that we are still primitive observers, standing on the shores of an infinite, untamed ocean, learning to be humble before a majestic design that stretches forever into the dark. To look back across the vast expanse of 4,500,000,000 years is to witness a magnificent, unrelenting mechanical journey of structural transformation. Our world did not materialize as a serene, unchanging paradise, but was systematically forged through a sequence of terrifying geological crucibles. We have traced this epic timeline from its earliest moments as a post-Theia volcanic fireball covered in oceans of liquid magma, through the silent isolation of a global white snowball entombed in kilometers of ice, and into the suffocating poison of the deadly Siberian magma traps. Yet, each catastrophic event, each violent meteor impact, and each architectural collapse was merely a necessary mechanical step toward bringing the world back to its current perfect balance. Even the titanic crashing of tectonic plates that raised the massive Himalayan mountain range was a calculated realignment, creating a vast water tower whose melting glaciers now directly nourish half the world's human population. Every historical disaster was a vital component in a grand planetary engine, working tirelessly across deep time to fine-tune the stable environment we enjoy today. This profound planetary chronicle reveals the core scientific message of our cosmic exploration. The absolute beauty of the universe lies not in a state of static stillness or frozen immutability, but in the constant, dynamic movement of the fundamental laws of thermodynamics. We often look at nature and long for a peaceful permanence, yet the cosmos operates as an open thermodynamic system driven by entropy, heat transfer, and the perpetual transformation of energy. Life itself is not the fragile opposite of cosmic destruction, but rather an inevitable, resilient product forged directly within the most ruthless furnaces of cosmic mechanics. The intricate biological networks that blanket our globe today were organized by the very same physical processes that dissolve mountains and churn oceans. The invariant physical constants of the universe, the precise values governing gravity, nuclear forces, and electromagnetic fields, act as the silent, invisible conductors directing the grand molecular symphony of earth and water. They dictate how carbon bonds, how water flows, and how heat radiates from the molten interior of the globe to the cold edge of space. We must abandon the illusion of an unchanging world and embrace the reality that our existence is sustained by a continuous, beautiful storm of physical interactions. Every cycle of decay and renewal, every volcanic eruption, and every shifting current is a manifestation of this universal order, demonstrating that structural volatility is the very mechanism that allows complexity to flourish. Our world is alive because it is restless, beautifully balanced on a knife edge of thermodynamic necessity that converts chaotic raw elements into an organized biosphere. Confronting this immense timeline requires us to honestly acknowledge the small, fragile limits of our daily human perception. For a single human life, a 70 or 80-year cycle feels like an eternity, an entire lifetime filled with complex memories, struggles, and historical shifts. To our physical bodies, a simple 1-kilometer walk across a rugged landscape can feel like a tiring, significant journey, requiring measurable effort. We look up at a monumental structure like Mount Everest, towering over 8,000 meters into the jet stream, and we crown it as the ultimate symbol of timeless eternity. But when placed against the unyielding chronicles of Earth, these familiar parameters completely dissolve into irrelevance. The entire collective history of human civilization lasts only a brief, invisible blink of an eye in the deep time ledger of our planet. When viewed from the true macroscopic scale of cosmic evolution, the spatial difference between a tiny ant crawling through the dirt and the massive peak of Mount Everest shrinks to absolutely zero. Our grandest monuments and smallest creatures are entirely equalized by the overwhelming magnitude of space and time. This staggering realization delivers a profound, transformative philosophical message that is uniquely capable of soothing the modern viewer's deep existential crisis. Imagine an ordinary office worker sitting quietly in front of a glowing computer monitor with an intricate Excel spreadsheet at 2 in the morning. Facing stressful professional deadlines, financial pressures, and the exhausting petty anxieties of modern life, they feel utterly insignificant, isolated, and physically spent under the weight of a mundane reality. But geology offers a majestic correction to this heavy sense of modern weariness. The structural science of our planet declares that every single iron atom rushing through the blood flowing through your beating heart was originally forged inside the superheated nuclear cores of exploding supernovae titans. Every carbon molecule that constructs your living cells was delivered to this world through the cosmic water droplets of the late heavy bombardment 3.9 billion years ago. We are absolutely not alien observers standing outside the universe. We are an organic, flesh and blood part of this universe, carefully forged through billions of years of fire and ice. We are the precise material pieces of the cosmos that have been given the miraculous chance to open our eyes, to look back at the dark void, and to evolve into self-aware, conscious beings capable of actively observing, calculating, and contemplating our own collective existence. The simple, overlooked fact that you are sitting here right now, peacefully breathing this mild, oxygen-rich air under a protective blue sky, is not a commonplace or mundane reality. It is a rare, spectacular privilege and a grand mathematical miracle operating flawlessly amidst the deadly radioactive void of deep space, proving that your life is permanently connected to the very dawn of creation. Every breath is an echo of ancient volcanoes, and every heartbeat is a testament to planetary survival, transforming your quiet midnight struggle into a triumphant cosmic event. The final rhythm of our journey slows its pace, leaving us with an eternal, heavy realization that connects our fragile species to the infinite future. Earth's history does not end with our civilization. Our planet will continue to spin, to reinvent itself, and to carve new geological wonders into the fabric of time for another 4.5 billion years. We are merely temporary guests on this restless, creative world, leaving our fleeting footprints on an ancient rock that will keep dancing in the cosmic dark long after we are gone. As the melancholy piano music fades into the background, the vast, crowded landscapes of our modern cities dissolve away, and the screen slowly dims to reveal a lonely blue dot floating quietly within the silent, beautiful vacuum of the infinite void.